Alrighty then. Almost forgot to start the broadcast because I made a mistake of going down some rabbit hole on Twitter trying to figure out who and why Nigel offended this time, or who and why offended Nigel, and this is never a good idea. So yeah, luckily Oliver came and looked at me meaningfully through the door, so I remembered that I was in the office for some other reason, and here we are. I'll do a somewhat shorter banter today. It will be something between 90 minutes and 2 hours, and I'll try to be a bit sharper than I was the last time. Last time, I think, I mean, there were obviously good bits, but there were also bits which were nowhere near good enough by what I would like to think are my standards. And I have the chat open, so as usual, keep me company, ask me questions. I like communicating with chat, so yeah, go ahead. And with all that, let's start playing. Let's start playing chess. I still have my voice all shaky. I mean, I might not have it by the end of this tournament, if, in particular, if even on rest days I will do something voice related. But so far, so good. But not doing 3 hours today is in part connected with me not really wanting to go completely mute at the very beginning of this marathon that we are attempting with Jan. What's the highest ranked player I could give a pawn? Material odds are very difficult to judge, Lorinda. I had basically one experience in my life of trying to give material odds. But that's a kind of a longish and not particularly interesting story, so we'll save it for another day or maybe another medium. But the art of giving material odds has been kind of extinguished by this point. I think nobody really knows how to do that anymore. And you read the accounts of how the old masters were doing it, and you think, seriously, how? I don't really understand. I mean, it seems impossible to give odds of this magnitude to people of that strength. I'll do something very risky here because all of my other options are annoyingly boring. This doesn't look risky, but I expect my opponent to take and play queen d5. At least this is what I would have done in his spot. And in reply to that, I'm planning to actually give him the pawn on a2. This is actually yeah, I can't do that. That is so annoying. The thing I was planning to do probably just loses, which is a serious drawback, let's put it like that. But then I have to take, and taking is just not attractive. Let's go with this. The thing I blundered is that he can take on a2. I'm obviously planning to play c3 here, avoiding mate in 1, and still attacking the pawn on g7 and the bishop. But the bishop can go all the way back to f8, protecting the g7. And yes, black is somewhat undeveloped at that point in time, but he is a pawn up. It's an important pawn I'm giving up, and the structure, as usual in all these Karo/Scandinavian structures, is so solid that finding actual compensation will not be easy at all. There are some fanciful things I can try there, like I can play d4, d5, either immediately or maybe after some kind of a preparatory move. But it doesn't really feel like it's going to be enough. Yeah, and I'm playing against a strong enough player that he is extremely likely to realize all that. So yeah, that was a gamble which is very likely not going to pay off. The position is not lost as such, but it's going to be very, very unpleasant if I don't find any direct play, and I don't really see any direct play, which is the worst bit. Yeah, I'd like to go d5 here, but I don't see how to... He takes with the c-pawn, it's the only move he has, but it's plenty good enough. And then after bishop b5 check, he will go knight c6. And I'm not in time to do anything about the queen on a2, which is somewhat stuck at that moment in time, but it's just not fast enough. You have to do something, but I mean, even just simply playing g6 in this position, stopping f5. If I do get f5 in, I might get some play, but it's slow play, but it's at least some kind of counterplay I can have, opening up some diagonals for my bishop. But generally speaking, this is not going to be enough. And g6 is just very strong, I think. The only point I could think of is to do it in this order. I can play d5. He kind of still has to take with the c-pawn, it feels. Then I can go bishop d4. He kind of has to go rook g8. And then I can play f5. And at that moment in time, he cannot take with the g-pawn because his rook on g8 will be hanging. But objectively, you cannot expect this to work. But this is one of those situations, and I think we discussed it with Lorinda a few days ago, where I am the side with initiative, and I need to do something immediately, or black will stabilize. And people suggesting bishop d3 in chat, they have a point. I mean, bishop d3 is a decent developing move. But black will play knight d7, knight f6. Black will slowly drive my pieces away. And then I'm a pawn down for really not very much. And I will find it very, very difficult to prove that my compensation amounts to anything. Yeah, bishop g7 castles may have been a way to play, but at least I win some of my material back. Yeah, this is obviously highly speculative, but at least this way I'm asking questions. They may not be particularly good questions, but they are questions at least. Would I give Kramnik more than 40 per... Yeah, what he's doing is very smart. Yeah, this is very well played by my opponent. I have a kind of a counter trick, but I'm not going to be enjoying it. Like, now he can take with the g-pawn if he wants, because my rook on d1 is hanging. But in reply, I have bishop b5 check, connecting my rooks, and then I will take on g8. It's going to be... it's going to be an interesting game. I still expect to lose it, but it's going to be an interesting game to watch, potentially. And also h5 in this position might be very, very strong. I don't like queen d7 though. I think queen d7 might be letting me back into the game. I think this is way too slow. I think both h5 and gf5 were much stronger than this. Queen takes? No, this cannot possibly be good. My opponent, who has been playing, I think, excellent chess up to this point, I think kind of lost track a little bit here. I still have to prove my position is... I mean, I'll go for this. I don't know if it's the best move, but I think from a practical standpoint, it's very strong. Because now all of his pieces are completely pinned and I should be able to sort of collect them at my leisure. No, but by this point, this is not Flagville, Sachin. By this point, I honestly think I'm completely winning, because none of these pieces are coming out. But queen d7, queen takes e6 was just inexplicable, considering how well I think my opponent played up to that point. Yeah, chances of Kramnik in a match against Carlsen is it's difficult to judge. It's difficult to judge, but I think 40% is a starting point, and I probably would put it at a higher percentage than 40. But these things are always highly speculative. Will I be in England at some point this or next year? I would very much like to, but I have no set plans to do that, and I have no invitation and no visa. Those things obviously can be procured, but um, sort of not on current schedule, but who knows what will happen. Yeah, this is a line I've seen people play, but I haven't never played with either color, so I expect to be wildly imprecise here. I think these days they do it slightly differently. I think a6 is the old main line. But can I still... Yeah, people know about this, I don't. Like, I'm not sure if e4... I think a3 is the old main line, but I wanted to try this because I have a feeling that this might transpose to something I would like to get, but then again, I could be completely mistaken. Ah, yeah, and this is not a... Okay, I'll... Uh, this is an interesting position, but it's a 5-minute game. Yeah, I don't know why every show I click on some non-premium challenge. Yeah, okay, let's do this. It's not his fault. I can't really read the signs. But I would have, yeah, that was kind of stupid. Something is wrong with the accept button, but at some point we'll get there. Yeah, the first one. Let's try and play the Grunfeld. I switched to some other stuff at some point in the show. Okay, nobody's gonna give me the Grunfeld. Yeah, people playing the London against me. I think they've kind of cottoned on to the fact that I have no repertoire against it, and I'm doing random stuff, which kind of varies from game to game. And I see it more and more even in the Banter Blitzes, and also people started playing quite seriously, playing the Berlin against me in tournament play. Do I think Aronian still has a chance to win? Yes, but it is greatly diminished after yesterday. I think it would be ridiculous to suggest otherwise. I just had this against Nakamura in Moscow. He played e4 here, which I think is the main theoretical move. And I think my position originally wasn't very good, but then I missed a chance to more or less win the game in one move because I missed an intermediary, which really you are not supposed to miss. Yeah, I don't know if the inclusion of queen e2 bishop b7 changes very much. It might. Or I might still have to play exactly the way you play if white plays e4 immediately. I'm not a huge expert on these positions. This is a kind of a weird setup which they are going for these days in this line. You put a knight on h5 and you don't actually take on g3 until white castles kingside, which should happen at some point. What's my current schedule for the year? I don't really have anything nailed on apart from the Russian clubs. I have some invitations, but not very many. And I'm somewhat undecided about them. So I think I might actually, after sort of threatening to do it for years, I might actually have a year of, I don't know if you can call it full-on casting, but there probably will be a decent amount of casting involved. Yeah, I'm not sure what this move is about. Like I'm supposed to start something on the queen side, but what that something is, I'm a little bit confused about. Like even cd4, cd4, b5 is not completely out of the question, but you should probably play somewhat more conservatively. There's really no reason to start, making taking abrupt decisions. I take most challenges. I've stated my preference for 4 minutes, which is, I think, a decent compromise for somebody who also has to talk while playing. But 4 minutes requires people who challenge me to actually manually adjust settings, and I understand it's a lot of work. You have to click more than one button. So all I get are 3 and 5 minute challenges, and I'm okay with that. No, a3 wasn't played with the idea of playing before. a3 was played so that I don't have c takes d4, c takes d4, and knight b4. Marilnam. Stopping knight b4 is very important there, because then I drive the bishop from d3, I play bishop a6. It gives me a lot of development, exactly along the lines I would like to get development. I'm still postponing the capture on g3. I don't know if that is correct or not, but I'm trying to do it sort of as late as possible. And this looks like a pawn sacrifice, but I don't think it's really a sacrifice as such, because if he takes twice, which I think he probably has to because b2 is hanging, I take on f3, and I either immediately win back the d4 pawn, or I force him to take with the g pawn, after which I should have very decent positional compensation, or at least that's the assumption here. And the more I think about it, the less I'm enamored with my idea, because the bishop just returns to d3. I still have to do it, there's really nothing else I can do. But the bishop just returns to d3, or even queen e4 followed by d5 is quite strong. I thought knight g7, knight f5 gave me very, very good play here, but now that I look at it kind of with in a harsh light of day, I no longer really think my idea was any good. Not that my position is lost or anything, but it's far less pleasant than I originally thought it will be in this line. I can definitely still harass him a little bit, and it's a concession for him to go bishop d3 here, because I think as long as he doesn't break my structure with d4, d5, I should have some counterplay, maybe even sufficient counterplay in some cases. What I should be extremely afraid of is him at some point getting the d5 break, and then if I have to take on d5, he takes, let's say, with the bishop, e5, e6 will become a threat at every turn. And those positions I really will not like. But sort of as long as that is not happening, my position feels like it should be tolerable. Not good, but tolerable. Bishop is coming to e4 though. And my problem is also I would like this bishop to be on some better squares. It should be like, if I could have it on b6 instead of this pawn, putting pressure on the d4 pawn, it would be a fantastic achievement for me, but I don't see how I can get that. This is objectively no good, but I need a plan. I really dislike just keeping to a holding pattern and doing nothing. And this extremely long-winded plan is basically me trying to achieve exactly what I was talking about just now. If he takes with the pawn, I want to take with the bishop, and then go bishop a5, bishop b6. And I quite like that my opponent did not give me that. I think it's correct. But at least I win some material back here. And I can hope maybe not to die in the process. For instance, if the queens come off, it immediately becomes a lot easier for me to defend. I mean, I'm still obviously worse after something like e6 here. Or takes e6, regardless of which move order he chooses. There's no question that my position is still highly suspect, but it might be possible to hold it with correct play. And I think this might be clever. Unless it loses on the spot, and it might actually lose to bishop h4. Yeah, I'm very happy he took on f7 before playing bishop h4. I think bishop h4 on the previous move was crushingly strong. But here, because of the pin along the d-file, I feel like I will trade the rooks off. And then I should be able to pick up the f7 pawn carefully. I have 57 seconds, so I actually have time to figure things out here. I need not to blunder bishop h6 in the end of that line. And the knight needs to be able to come across and assist in attacking the f7 pawn. This is kind of more complicated than I originally thought. Obviously, if I can trade the a-pawn for the f-pawn, yeah, knight g2 check was an immediate draw there, which I should have taken, obviously. That was a largish mistake. Yeah, it's the knight is just so dead. It's very, very difficult to get it across to any kind of a sensible square. And like even here, it's very difficult for me to attack anything. No, okay. Yeah, I'm gonna get flagged here. And I mean, fair play to my opponent. Playing on 10 seconds and also trying to explain what's going on is difficult. And I think he genuinely played this game quite well. Here I have no problem whatsoever. I mean, I'm not even worse after something like knight e4. I might be slightly better. It's a draw, but I'm the side pushing. But it doesn't matter. This is a blitz game and I was way too slow. And once again, I wasn't really flagged in this game. I was first outplayed, and then when I had to defend a poor position, my opponent played faster than me, so well played to him. Okay, so what have I missed? What have I missed in chat? Yeah, pushing the accept button doesn't seem to work nearly as well as it generally does. I don't understand why. Because I tried accepting, I think, 3 different challenges by this point, and it didn't really happen for me. It's a little bit annoying, but it'll get resolved, I'm sure. And there we go. So what was going on? What was going on in chat? Yeah, it's difficult to figure out whilst also making moves. How and when did I learn English? I basically learned English by playing early computer games, quest games in particular, things like Leisure Suit Larry and things of that nature, and listening to a lot of music, and later on progressing to reading a lot of books in English, to the extent that now my reading material is 90% in English, I think. I don't play cricket because there's really nowhere to play cricket for a Russian. I watch a ton of it though. Although less than I used to. I used to watch more or less sort of anything that was broadcast and I could find a stream for, because I also used to have a legal source for cricket streams, but then they at some point decided that due to geographical restrictions, they no longer want even to take Russian money, because the broadcasts were not really licensed for Russia. And yeah, that was a sad day, because I was quite happily paying decent money to them, but the stream quality was very nice, and yeah, that was enjoyable. But now I have to look for undercover streams. Not quite sure what my opponent is trying to achieve here. But it's important not to blunder anything in the center, so I will make the knight on c6 doubly secure, because I have a feeling that one of the things I could blunder at some point in this game is something connected with a6, and then I will not be able to reply with b6. So I am overprotecting this knight on c6 for those eventualities. Yeah, and I think it might also be useful to have this rook on c8 for these cases. a6 is not a very nice positional move to make, but he definitely needs to go back. I don't think he can take on c5, because then I can go knight g4, the queen goes to a3, I take on e3, I go knight c2, and it's like a super fork. I fork every single heavy piece on the board. Yeah, and this way I can actually demonstrate it, which is useful, instead of just talking about it. And because the queen has very, very few squares, I think I'm actually winning a full rook here, because the only square the queen can actually get to is a4. And then I can take on a4 and take on e1, and it's a full rook. He actually should have continued, because in this position he can take on b7 and then take on a6. But objectively, of course, with an extra rook, I should be able to convert from here. Let's say go rook b8, bishop a6, rook b2, and yes, the a-pawn is a little bit alarming, but yeah, a rook is a rook. But I think that was a bit of a early resignation. Okay, let's play some lower rated games. Yeah, I've not been following that series very much, Temba, but it feels like the current situation with the bans for poor behavior in cricket is not really very sustainable, and yeah, I would like for all these things to be handled on the field of play, and I'm sure they could have been handled on the field of play with a ward from the umpires. You have to assume Rabada would not have been banned if he was kind of warned at some point that his behavior is now crossing boundaries, and if he continues in the same way, he will get severely punished. I'm pretty sure he is well, I mean, he's obviously a passionate enough young man, but he's also a reasonable young man, and he would probably stop. But it's the current climate and everything. People get upset, and then people get punished. Those things are connected. I don't want to allow c5. I mean, with the queen on d2, I want to move the queen somewhere where c5 will not create an isolated in the center. My structure is very, very nice, and I really don't like to give him an opportunity to break it up, at least in the center. If he goes knight g5 here, I'm actually planning to go queen g3 and double my pawns on the g-file. But this is a lot less disruptive to my general structure, and the 4 pawns on the queen side are the pawns I would like to preserve exactly where they are. Also queen e5 instead of queen g3, and I will actually make this move now. It's a lot more harmonious. Why doesn't Morozevich play much? Well, he shifted to other things in life. Exactly why I think it would be wrong for me to speculate. He's always been a very complicated person, and he's done things for his own reasons, and you have to assume they were good reasons. But I'm not a close friend of his by any stretch, and I don't really like to speculate about other people's motives. This is at least in normal course of events, this should be a very smooth conversion, because my absolute pawn majority on the queen side should just carry. The other rook goes to b1, and then I start pushing my pawns. I mean, I should take care not to blunder anything anywhere, but the plan is quite obviously to at some point start pushing the queen side pawns, and that should win. And I think once they start rolling, it's incredibly difficult for black to do anything about it. There's just too many of them. Once again, have to take care not to blunder anything yet connected with knight g2, but I think that should still be a possibility. I played one 10.4 arena username. It was horrible, but it's very difficult to base any kind of a judgment on such a small sample. And the next arena I drafted is a very decent tempo rogue deck, which I currently have at 3-1, I think. And the loss I had was extremely frustrating. Like, I lost to a guy who meteored something on turn 9. On turn 8, on turn 9 I played Isera. He had a second meteor for that. And then my next board got destroyed by the Dragon's Fury, which rolled 7. I think that's a bit too much for an arena game. But obviously, arena bad beat stories we should keep to a minimum in this stream. Tourist players who don't speak Russian, welcome in St. Petersburg Chess Club. Well, define welcome. You'll be allowed in, and you'll be allowed to walk around and so on, but if there is a very serious language barrier, you probably will not get very much out of the visit, because on the other hand, almost every day there will be someone there who speaks English, and there will be reasonably high-level people there teaching more than anything. I don't think, like on a random day, you might not find a tournament there you're interested in, even on an amateur level, but there's definitely classes going on most days of the week, and those classes are taught by good players. Yeah, this is a very annoying system. I never know exactly what to do against it, to be honest. I've lost, or at least feels like I've lost, so many games against it. d5 is kind of weird. I don't think it's a good move. Bishop d3 is not a good reply, though. You should never ever give up this bishop in this position. Just take on d5, play bishop b3 or something, or castle. Yeah, I mean, people by this point know that I feel very, very strongly about giving up bishops for knights in almost any situation, but in this situation there's really absolutely zero justification for it. It was a very good bishop. Why do you part with it? Yeah, knight c6 is a possible move, but I mean, you still need to follow it up with something. It's not really enough to just play knight c6. You need to have a kind of a plan in your head on what you're going to do afterwards. I've forgotten to silence my phone, which is a mistake. Let me do it now. And yeah, once my opponent blunders bishop d3 there, the game is more or less effectively over. And I should mention that this actually has been a 4-minute challenge, something I specifically sort of asked for during this broadcast as well. And it does seem to be unrated by default. And if you cannot make a rated 4-minute challenge, I should probably withdraw the request for 4-minute challenges, because I mean, I don't really necessarily need this rating, and I'm not guaranteed to win every single game, so it's not really about me not winning rating. It's just that it feels like playing rated games is always preferable to playing unrated ones. But now I kind of feel like I should accept all the people who created those 4-minute challenges, because they quite clearly whoa, okay. Okay, so we have a Fischer random game, which I did not know when I clicked on it, but I don't mind it. And this gives me an opportunity to look at the board for a little bit, because my clock isn't, as opposed to a tournament game, the game doesn't immediately start. So I can actually kind of formulate some plans. For a 4-minute game at Fischer Random, I think taking 30 seconds to try and figure out where your pieces belong is not the worst idea in the world. Yeah, the issue with 960 in many cases is obviously that the temptation to just repeat what your opponent is doing in many positions will be extremely strong. And when I won the Open tournament, which was a qualifier for what then was called the World Championship matches in Mainz, I won the qualifier by winning the last 7 games, and on the first day I started by winning the first 2 games with, my first 2 white games were won, and my first 2 black games I lost horribly in like 25 moves to players who were okay. We're both kind of foiled by the software here, because this obviously, in both my case and my opponent's case, this was a castling move, but the system doesn't really recognize this King of 1 G1 move as a castling move, so I think we're in trouble here, both of us. Yeah, and my opponent has typed in chat that he didn't know that it doesn't work. I don't blame him, I also didn't know it didn't work, but yeah, playing Fischer Random where you cannot castle is a very, very challenging proposition, obviously. It's not for the faint-hearted. I'm also now sort of completely winning, because I will have a crushing attack on the king side. But that's mainly, once again, to do with the fact that we both wanted to castle, and now that there's this rook on h8 and a rook on h1, the side that creates the first threats on the king side will just win. People are saying that you have to put king above rook, not king to g1. Yeah, I didn't. I never played 960 on this platform, so I didn't know how to do things, and it led, I think, to my opponent repeating what I did. So neither of us really knew how it works. Yeah, it's regrettable because I would have liked to play a proper 960 game without this this disruption. Yeah, there has to be some kind of a mate here. Like the queen just needs to get to the g file and it's mate, but rook c6 is a good move which I originally missed. And also it's very important that the bishop on b8 is covering the g3 square, so I cannot just play my knight somewhere and then queen g3 mate. I still need to finesse it a little bit. Yeah, let's include more pieces in the attack. No, this is not vodka. This is Magnus water, which has even more magical properties than vodka does, if that is possible. The thing is, I'm still not threatening rook g3 check, but with two pieces on the third rank, I'm beginning to think that something like knight d4 could be made in some moves. It would need to be precisely calculated, though. And after knight f6, knight e6, I think I can take on f6, because I create this huge threat of knight e7 check, which will be very, very difficult, difficult to parry. Yeah, this is a bit cooperative from my opponent. And I will even, a very rare guest, a pre-move from Peter Svidler. I don't really do pre-moves, which is why I'm so rubbish at competitive online blitz these days. Okay, let's look for... In the ongoing debate about not accepting lower rated challenges, I'm going to err on the side of going lower than usual. Thanks to you, Seal. I'm sorry we both didn't know how to castle, and that kind of spoiled the game, I think, for both of us. But I was genuinely very happy to see this challenge and to see this starting position. I kind of missed 960. I really wish there were opportunities to play it sort of through the calendar year. I don't belong to the group of people who think that 960 is the savior of chess and absolutely has to sort of replace classical chess for chess to survive. I'm not really of that opinion. But I always enjoyed playing 960, and I think 960 would be a welcome addition to the calendar. D5 is a more appropriate decision in this position, but decided not to do it because, well, mainly because I wanted to do something else. Just didn't want to repeat myself over and over again. There are some positions here in which you can go bishop g4, but I'm kind of wondering about knight takes e7 at the end of that variation, and whether I should be worried about it. But maybe not. And normally you don't play f4 here. Oh no, you don't play f4 here because of queen b6, now I remember. Yeah, because I used to play this line with white, and what you do is you start with knight b3, and after bishop goes to e6, then you play f4, and then king h1, bishop g1. I actually won a very important game in this line against Alexander Halifman in Tilburg in '94, which almost led to me missing the Russian championship I eventually won. but then he crushed me in the second game of the micro match, and I was in time to go to Elista, so that was all good. I think my g4 just wins material here. Knight takes e4 definitely wins material here, but I wanted to win more material. I think this just wins a piece. I could be wrong though, but I have a feeling this just collects everything. Unless knight d5 works, but I think after knight d5 maybe I can go bishop takes d4 anyway. Yeah, and this is the point. b3 is such a poor move because at the end of this variation, the knight on c3 is left defenseless. So this tactic, which normally is just a simplification tactic, in this particular case just wins a full piece. Well, I can do more or less anything here. I don't really need to react to this even. But yeah, okay, I don't know, let's go rook b8. Knight f5, if you mean immediately after queen b6, then knight f5 can be met by queen takes b2, knight g7, queen takes c3. Knight f5 is definitely not the reason to be worried with black here. I have to remember this is a 3-minute game, and I should at some point start either playing faster or paying more attention or something, because, well, I mean, the position is obviously completely winning, but it still pays to not tune out entirely. Well, he's allowed to play. I don't begrudge him his continuing in a position with a clear extra piece. I mean, it's a game. Bishop f2 was possible, knight e4 was stronger. Just for my improvement. I don't think that is for my improvement. Bishop f2 is not a move. I mean, I just win everything here, unless you mean some other position, but yeah, I'm not sure what people are talking about in chat. Favorite authors, writers. There's too many to name. I remember when I used to answer by sort of naming Martin Amis and then starting to think, but those times have been and gone. But seriously, there's just too many to name. I am currently reading a new novel by John le Carré, who I think is a fantastic stylist and generally a very, very good writer. I'm also listening to hang on a second, I need to figure out what I'm doing against the Queen's Indian. I'm in the King's Indian. It's always confusing to me to find the move order. Yeah, listening to a book by Hilary Mantel, who I really, really love as a writer. But these lists will vary month to month, sometimes even week to week. I don't really have a favorite Beatles song. I was never, I mean, I understand it's probably my shortcoming more than anything else, but I was never really much of a Beatles fan. My kids were huge Beatles fans at some point, and we listened to a lot of. At some point, I downloaded the entire canon. I mean, I own some albums, but I decided for the kids to make some mixtapes. So I got the entire canon, and I made some mixtapes. And kids went through that phase, but I never really went through that phase. I had a huge, let's say, the Doors phase, and I'm still very much in my Dylan and Waits phase, but Beatles, not really. I don't know why I'm sort of continuing to give him the b5 break here. And he should have played b5 by this point, because at some point it will become a lot harder. Like, for instance, once I castle, b5, bishop takes b5, he no longer will have knight takes e4 as a reply. And this, I think, might just be very, very bad, because this queen on a5, you don't leave it out there. It will just get captured in many cases. I think knight a6 might be the only move which prevents him from losing the queen on the spot, which is, yeah, he does well to find it, but you generally don't want to be doing these things. I think it's time to start something on the king side. While all of his pieces are stuck on the other side of the board, I would like to do something thematic on the king side here. I will probably include king h1 at some point, just sort of for tidiness sake, but I'm not even sure if it's necessary, to be honest. I mean, let's go. Where is the Eagles quote from your on your profile from? It's from Kalevala, which is a Finnish epos. I don't know if epos is a word in English. It's an epic poem in Finnish, which obviously I did not read in Finnish. Finnish is a very difficult language. I read some translations. And my opponent kind of disregarded what I was doing on the king side, and he will get hopefully severely punished for it. But I think generally we'll return to it. I'll show you some ideas once this game is finished. Here I think I'm just giving mate because the queen lands on h6, and then the knight goes to g5 and it's mate. Yeah, I really like silly questions. If there were some silly questions in chat which I missed, could you please retype them? So, I mean, somewhere around here, if I were faced with this position with black, I would very much want to play 5e4 as early as possible, maybe even here, just to have some squares for my pieces. Let's say after knight e4, knight e5, the bishop is hanging, the pawn is hanging, there are some squares for my pieces, and it doesn't feel like I'm getting as rolled over as I was in the game after, let's say, knight f6, bishop g5. I think it might already be a bit too late. But even here, you should... Your extra pawn is worth nothing here. What you should try and do is shed some of your material to at least unpin yourself. But by this point, honestly, I think it may be a bit too late, because my pieces are just too active, and I will at some point break through on the f-file. I have definitely tried magic, Killian, but I was never the kind of nerd / geek, and I'm using those terms in the most complimentary light possible. They are not derogatory terms in my world. That played very well with others, so I gravitate a lot more naturally to online games. And Magic as an online game is just very, very difficult, I feel. The entrance threshold is just so much higher than, for instance, with Hearthstone, that I tried it for a bit and I just couldn't really understand what I was doing, and I gave up. And it's regrettable, because I think it's a very interesting game, but why did I play 92 here? I think I maybe wasn't supposed to play 92 here. But we'll carry on regardless. Can I pay you for my chess improvement? I don't really coach, Frenzlin. So the simple answer to that question is no. I don't know if I needed to include, probably not, but I was kind of worried he will go knight a5 at some point, and I wanted to secure my bishop on c4 against that eventuality. But playing before obviously gives him a target for some counterplay on the queen side. He can play a5, force me to play b5, and then my pawns are not really aesthetically very pleasingly placed on the queen side. But I'm, I'm trying to give mate here, so I'm not really that bothered about how my structure on the other side looks. This is a good move, though. I kind of... Can you pay me for my chess improvement? Yeah. Keep talking. Feels like I should have something very decisive here, but I don't see it. It's annoying. Like, I want to play g4, but I don't see how it's good. And playing some kind of a normal move like castles or something along those lines just feels extremely underwhelming. At least queen f3, I create a number of threats. The knight on d5 is hanging. Also, because of knight f6 checks, obviously, not that it hangs immediately, but I'm threatening knight d5, queen d5, knight f6 check. And if he goes something like rook d8, I can take on d5 and the bishop on f5 will be hanging. So something like knight c7 might be called for here. But forcing him to make a move like that, I probably should count as an improvement in my fortunes. Although it's a reasonable move. I don't like bishop e6 though. I think I don't know if it's very bad, but I think it's a concession which wasn't really called for. Black's position was nowhere near bad enough for him to suddenly decide to do this. Might actually still be playable though, because I'd like to take on e6, but after he takes with the pawn, I need to be able to castle immediately, and I'm worried about blundering some tactics connected with knight takes e3 and then something takes on f2. But maybe I can pass for now and then take on e6 next move. Well, not pass, but I mean make a development move. Peter, my friend and I had a drinking game based on having to do a vodka shot every time you use the word regrettable. And after the stream, he died of alcohol poisoning. I'm very sorry for your loss, Clash City Rocker. Knight takes h7 was obviously very high on my list, but I don't think it works because he always has bishop f5 or queen f5 in the end there, securing the h7 square. That was one of my very first reactions to the move he made. So yeah, well done you for spotting it, but I don't think it worked. I can take on e6, but he seems to be disentangling himself there. After knight g5, he can go queen d7 or queen d6 or something, and I don't see... Actually, it might still be very good. Let's go for it. If he takes with the pawn, it's obviously a lot better for me now when I'm very, very well protected on the f2 square. So I'm unlikely to blunder some immediate tactic, and then I should be able to stabilize. Yeah, drinking chess games are... there is probably an apocryphal story which made it into every chess/humor book I've ever seen, where I think it featured Marazzi and potentially maybe Lasker, but I'm not sure. And the rules of the games were quite simple. Every single piece on the board represented an alcoholic beverage, and the sort of the worth of the piece decided what kind of beverage and the amount of alcohol in it. So if you captured the queen, you had to drink an equivalent of, I don't know, half a bottle of cognac. I will not be giving the exact amounts because it's been a while since I read the story and I don't remember them. But this is sort of the point. You get the point, I guess. And the game began e4, e5, queen h5, knight c6, queen takes f7, and white won convincingly soon after. Yeah, I need to disentangle myself here somehow. I need to start attacking some of these things he has in the center. I'm not entirely sure how. Also, I need to start playing faster. I think that might be the most important thing about this game right now. Where can you buy Magnus water? I don't know. It's available absolutely everywhere in Hamburg. It seems to be the water of choice in Hamburg. We've always had it in the office. I don't remember ever seeing any other water in the Chess24 offices. And I honestly don't think it has anything to do with the name. I just think it's sort of as so widely available around here that this is kind of the obvious choice. I would like to go g3, and I think knight takes d3, rook d1 doesn't work for him, but I could blunder something there very, very easily, so I could be wrong about that. And then I'm obviously in trouble. And I kind of checked briefly. No, I think here, if I go g3, he will actually be able to take. Yeah, I was trying to calculate that and not really succeeding. So we'll switch to some kind of a hack attack. Not to mix it up with the jack attack, who won the Sydney HTT stop. What am I doing here? Yeah, Magnus is always in the offices, at least in spirit, because of the water, I guess you can say. Yeah, rook f2 is a bit of a threat here, I have to say. It was kind of important not to blunder it in that position. But once again, I'm sort of one move away from full stability here. Like if I can bring the knight back to e4 and go g3, king g2, suddenly my position will look pristine. But it is not a given I will have enough time for that. I don't think queen d7 is a great move though. I think something like rook f8 was called for. Yeah, just bring it back, go king g2, rook d1. I don't know, let's go a3. Also, I'll shut up for a second here because I don't want to lose on time. That wasn't actually a blunder. That was a bit of a cheapo, obviously, but my opponent was kind of too happy about me blundering a full queen to think about it too hard. So yeah, I guess he thought that, you know, his ship has finally come in, but not on that occasion. Yeah. Queen d7, Peter missed queen h5. Yeah, very possibly, but black does have g6 there, Sebi. So I don't think it wins. It may have been a stronger move than what I was doing though, because I basically at this point just wanted to get all of my moves in, so the bishop on b6 is not as threatening and the pawn on f2 is a lot more secure. Super Grandmaster has been known to give queens for nothing, just not on that case, Frenzulin. Yeah, that was a very, very nice game, Brain Boy, which I spoiled by playing a very nice combination, which actually appeared on the board in the wrong order, and at some point, had Vasily reacted in the correct way, I would have been much worse. But yeah, if you disregard that, that was one of the better games I played in my life, I think. As for how do you prepare for a player like Ivanchuk, I always enjoyed playing Ivanchuk, and I still think it's one of the most enjoyable things to prepare for on the tournament scene, simply because in my case, I just choose not to prepare for him. When I'm playing Vasily, I just tell myself there is zero chance I will guess what he will play, so I can just watch a movie or read a book or do something enjoyable with my life instead of spending half the morning repeating lines. And for me, this is, the best feeling in the world is when I can tell myself with some justification that the usual grind of repeating your entire repertoire before the game is completely unnecessary, because you're playing somebody who can play any move in, like, against e4 he can play any move, against d4 he can play any move, with white he can play any move during the first 5. So yeah, for me it's a rest day before the round, and then it's a very interesting game against a hugely gifted player who I respect and admire a great deal. So yeah, I really like playing against Vasily on a number of counts. I didn't play the opening particularly well here. I thought I will be in time to push for an e5 break, but queen e7 followed by knight d7. Well done to my opponent for spotting it. It wasn't very difficult, but he still, he took some time. But people are allowed to take time. And now, yeah, he can play rook e8 next move and just kind of forever stop me from achieving my objective there. I can go for some very highly speculative things, like I can play e5 either immediately after rook e1, rook e8, and pretend I have tremendous compensation for the sacrificed material. But I don't really believe in it myself, and that is a drawback with speculative sacrifices. You need to at least believe it works on some level. Would I approve of a super tournament where everyone promises not to prep and play something funky? Well, as long as it's not rated. Sure, why not? It's just important to kind of make sure people understand that this is not a competitive format. You can't really force people to completely disregard, the years of study. This is what 960 is for. If you want funky, just hold 960 tournaments. But if you want to play from the classical starting position and still make it obligatory for people to play random stuff, then it has to be quite clearly specified that this is not competitive and it shouldn't be rated. And then we can all enjoy it. And yeah, I wouldn't mind playing in a tournament like that, and I think it would be fun. It's just that there needs to be some kind of clear demarcation between this and competitive chess. I just played e5 because I felt like playing e5. In this position, it feels to me like it should work, but I haven't really taken the trouble of figuring out why it works. So we will be doing it sort of together, live on air. I will, now having played e5, I will try to figure out how to follow it up. Queen h4 was unexpected. Maybe I actually should have started with rook e1, because this move exists, and in general I kind of counted on him on going to more passive squares. Which super GMs do you hate to play with? Well, hate to play with is... it's a difficult metric to quantify. The worst score I have in classical chess is probably against Vishy. Queen d4 check, I'm not that worried. I can just go queen h5 and then c3. I'm more worried about the fact that with the queen on h4, I'm not actually threatening to take on e5, because then queen d4 check will be a problem in many positions. Yeah, knight b6 is a possibility, but the bishop will just go somewhere from c8, and if I play d7, he can go rook e d8. I'm not sure it's a great Evans gambit. I would very much like to win this pawn back instead. Maybe I still can, actually. It leads to endgames, but those endgames are extremely good for me, so I probably should kind of swallow my pride here and... Hang on a second, he can take on d6 there. I can take on e5, he goes queen d4 check, I can play queen f2 or queen e3, queen f2 probably. But he has queen takes d6 in that position, and I don't see a way to make bishop h7 work, which is annoying me. Because like it semi feels like it should be there, but I don't see it. I found some other opportunities, but I have by this point sort of, whilst my opponent was replying, I already refuted it, so I'm a bit stuck. I thought, yeah, this is the endgame I was talking about. This endgame is very, very good for me. But he could have taken on d6 instead. And there I wasn't so sure if I was doing well or not. Actually, maybe even this endgame is not as clear as I originally thought. Bishop b6 is a very good move. I will have to go through some contortions here to try and protect the pawn on d6, but once again, I'm not very far from stability here. Yeah, and after bishop b4, I thought I can find a jump for this knight, but I don't see it. Yeah. No, I'm getting kind of slowly outplayed here. Maybe not even very slowly. Rook takes d6 now. And I think I'm kind of dead now. Yeah, this was a poorly sequenced number of decisions. Rook e d8 is just crushingly strong here for black. I still have some drawing hopes here, but objectively this is a lost endgame. And I think it stems from my decision to play d6 a bit too early. I should have started with rook a1, forced him to play f6 and then played d6. That would have been a lot stronger. I'm not sure what this move is about though. And when I see, in an endgame, when I see a player make a move I don't quite understand it, I feel like this gives me hope, but objectively the evaluation hasn't really changed. This is still a very, very poor position for me. Actually, b3, knight c6. Yeah, I keep on blundering. f6 is a decision I cannot understand at all. I think maybe my opponent is. I don't really want to win this game. I never really. Let's offer a draw. Like, why wouldn't you take on c4 and a5 on the previous move? Like, this is insanity. Like in this position, black can take on c4, take on a5, and yes, I have some drawing chances because I probably will get to the b7 pawn, but black is currently 2 pawns up in a knight endgame. And instead of that, he went f6, and then he didn't even go knight c6 in this position. Yeah, I don't really feel like. I understand it's a bit weird to offer a draw in what by this point is probably just a winning position, because I take on c5 and then I start pushing and his king is far away and mine is very close to the action. But yeah, didn't really feel like I won this game. And to go back to what I think is the critical point, in this position I can go rook a1. I can actually not even play e5, and if he, let's say, goes f6, I think bishop e2 is crushingly strong. So e5 already was not necessary, but after g5, I think it was much, much stronger than what I did to go rook a1 first. Ask him the question whether he wants to play f6 or not, and if he does play f6, now you go d6. And h4 is just such a good square for this queen, compared to the horrible squares he will have to choose from in this position, like he has to play queen d8 or something, and then I can find some ways to potentially strengthen my position. But mainly I think I thought that this knight h5, knight e5 idea was wrong from black. I thought he should play something like rook b8, h6, just wait for a bit, not giving me this, this knight b6, knight c4 transposition. And once I got to this position, I felt, okay, this is extremely good for me, and it is, I think. Objectively, I'm much better close to winning, I suspect, here. And I kind of tuned out for a couple of moves and got very nicely punished by my opponent for a while, and then he did something strange. I don't really need to be taught the art of merciless flagging. King of Lego people. I'm aware of the skill, I just don't really like using it. I feel like not accepting the sacrifice is wrong, but I should at some point actually learn what to do against Namora, because I've lost games to it on these streams. And I continue misplaying stuff horribly against Namora, and I already don't like what I'm doing here, for instance. This really doesn't feel like I'm doing something that makes any sense to me. I mean, I am a pawn up and I have few structural weaknesses, so I don't think I'm going to be losing anytime soon, but I'm really, really not enamored with my approach to the opening in this game. Yeah, we had some fun in Bundesliga forking knights. As I think the picture you may have seen on Twitter is, I think I don't generally do selfies or publish selfies. I'm not a fan of that art form. But that particular selfie that Paco has taken, it's not very often that you see four people who so clearly actually enjoy the moment and are kind of genuinely happy to be in each other's company. That I felt that, you know, that particular selfie is worthy of republishing. Yeah, I don't know what my opponent is doing though. This is not why you play the Mora. The Mora is not played with the stated intention of trading people and going into pawn down positions where black has the bishops. Yeah, I'm not one for predictions. Which probably means that Jan will force me to predict something in the start of the show. And this is about the only situation in which I subject myself to the whole prediction game. Because we're sitting here in the studio, I'm kind of a captive audience is maybe the way to describe it, and Jan just forces me to participate, but generally speaking, it's not my game. Queen f6 is also quite decent, but let's go rook h8 for now. But yeah, I think after g5, knight g6, white needs to look for some ways to sacrifice material straight away. Like knight d5 was very interesting there. I'll click, like, in particular here, I thought knight c3, d5 was the way to go. Although after d6, I'm not forced to take. But that would be my first port of call here, going knight d5. Yeah, and here I should be in complete control. Unless I lose my mind somehow, I should be winning from here very, very comfortably, because my structure on the king side, despite having a pawn on g5, I don't really have weaknesses, and he doesn't really have pieces which, you know, can be anywhere near my king. And yeah, I'm already a pawn up, and I will start picking stuff up on the queen side at some point. I mean, queen b4 probably just wins here. I don't really see why I shouldn't. There's really nothing happening on the other side of the board that worries me in the slightest. Rook h5 I might actually have to pay attention to, because rook takes g5 might threaten a perpetual there. That's about the only thing that I need to take half seriously. But I can go queen d2, queen f4, for instance, in reply. Yeah, and bishop on d4 is a nice looking piece. And here I can actually, this is not a pawn, I'm basically winning this knight on b6, it has no squares. I don't live in Germany, I am now in Germany for the duration of the candidates to do commentary on it. I have lived in exactly the same spot in St. Petersburg for my entire life. Not even just in St. Petersburg. I've moved basically one floor from the flat I was brought to after I was born. Yeah, not enough attackers here. Nowhere near enough attackers, so this will fizzle out. I have a feeling this might be a... I thought this might be a Fischer random game as well, but no. This is what I said, didn't I? Beaten by Quakers. Have I ever played Marcus Rager? Twice, I think. We drew one game, and one game I managed to actually surprise him in some anti-Berlin, which is not something you can say very often, because I think he generally is a lot better booked up in the openings that he plays. Not in every single opening, but his repertoire is very, very solid, and he also knows it extremely well. So for me to actually know a subline of the anti-Berlin better than he did was a stroke of extreme good fortune, and I won that game. What am I supposed to do here? Also, what am I supposed to do here? I mean, I can go e4. Let's go e4. Let's play some Maratse. Maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I should have played g3, because I'm instantly regretting this choice, because I don't really know very much about the Maratse, and I never really enjoyed it. People are supposed to enjoy this with white, but I think for that you kind of need to know what you're doing, which is not something I was ever really able to say about myself. Peter, how are you training yourself? I play a lot of arena, and I try to learn the meta, and I try to listen to good streamers. Okay, yeah, the question of how to improve yourself from a certain level when this level is already reasonably high is a very difficult one, and I'm really not the person to pontificate on that subject. I've never been the best at that. Yeah, this is the issue with me playing. This is the issue with me playing the Maratse structures. I'm extremely confused very early on. I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. If you go knight a4, you really are supposed to do it when your king is still on e1, so you can take with the king on you can take with the king on g2 at least. There is like no way white is better here, objectively. Do you Jewish? Yes, I do. I'm a bit more pleased about my position now, because I think in general this structure change when black hasn't really made very much progress on the queen side with, let's say, a5, a4, and so on, favors white quite significantly. No, I'm not giving anybody a lesson on the Marazzi bind. Please don't follow what I'm doing in the Marazzi bind structures. There are people out there who can actually do this well, and I'm just clicking buttons. Do you think crazy peoples can be good chess players? Yes. There is no direct correlation between being good at chess and being smart. Chess is a very specific single skill. You will find some smart chess players, you will find some less smart chess players, but chess in itself, I mean, there is some connection with, let's say, spatial imagination and things of that nature, but there is no immediate connection between chess and smarts as such. And yeah, this game was kind of immediately over once my opponent blundered a full exchange there. There's all kinds of ways you can win this. Yeah, I mean, bishop d7 was, as chat says, was a kind of a nice trick, but not a very difficult one. I didn't expect my opponent to blunder it, to be honest. Not his day in general. I have read the Royal Game, yeah. But long time ago, and I only remember the details vaguely. Have you played very many girls Alpha Zero? Would be my next question. Is there any gem you think is particularly stupid? Nice try. Nice try. Which Westerns GMs speak Russian? Joël Lothier, who now lives in Russia, but he hasn't always lived in Russia, speaks Russian like a native. I think his Russian is sort of equal or better than my English, which should be a decent enough qualification. Yannick Pelletier speaks very decent Russian. From the older brigade, John Spielman used to be the go-to Russian speaker among strong grandmasters. How could it be possible that Levon played an opening in which he has not much experience? Well, he has a ton of experience with it from the other side, to be honest. And I mean, this is a candidates tournament, so you know your field month in advance, so you can formulate some kind of a detailed strategy. And as we mentioned with Jan more than once during the broadcast yesterday, playing 1e4 against Vlad, you are more or less certain of what you're getting. And this is, an attractive proposition in many cases, because it's nice to be absolutely assured of getting a certain structure, a certain concrete position. Even in the case of Kramnik, I think you can be quite confident about not just getting a Berlin or anti-Berlin, depending on what you want, but you pretty much know what he will be doing in those openings. And Lev felt that this gave him a better chance than an extremely solid repertoire that Kramnik these days has against 1d4, 1c4, and so on. So it's not really the choice of 1e4 that was so questionable. It was an unusual choice for sure, and I'm not sure it was necessarily correct, but it was still sort of understandable. This is a typical structure where white is basically supposed to be better more or less regardless of what he does, but you end up playing g5 almost always anyway. So I'll do it here, but you can also go bishop d3. One thing you don't do is allow f takes g4 with the bishop still alive on g6. And the point here is that we're not trying to capture this bishop on h4, we're just saying we have more space. This bishop on g6 will never actually reach any good squares, like it never lands on e4. The knight on d7 also never lands on any good squares. It's quite easy to control the counterplay connected with bishop h5, which is about the only counterplay black can count on here. I maybe should have put the bishop on b4 at some point, but I don't really think... I'm not entirely sure I need to trade those bishops off. Like if I go bishop b4, he probably goes bishop e7 and the bishops come off. And yeah, I think maybe I should have done that. So I'll do it now to make sure this eventually happens. And then we end up with these positions where endgames are incredibly difficult for black, potentially maybe even lost. So you cannot really with black, you know, in good conscience aim to just simplify, trade everything off and save those endgames. But on the other hand, of course, it's extremely difficult to make progress here with white. Like it's one thing to understand that this position is very good. It's a very, very different thing to... Yeah, I should make sure I don't blunder bishop h5. It's very, very important not to allow bishop h5, of course, because, you know, a very, very large part of my advantage here lies in the difference between this bishop on e2 and this bishop on g6. So allowing my opponent to trade them off would be a horrible, horrible mistake. And now that we're getting the endgame I was kind of talking about earlier, where I think even though 4 rooks come off, I suspect it might be close to winning for white because of how poor the structure is on the queen side. The king just gets to b4, I go knight c5, and even the bishop endgame might be lost. So I'm very optimistic about this. I mean, let's make sure. I don't really need to take on g7 because it makes it easier for black to bring his king over. So but by this point, like my opponent should have realized that he cannot really pass forever. He needs to start taking on g3 at some point. Yeah, and here I think what we do is we just snap everything off and we go... Whoa, I almost played h4 in this position. This would have been a mistake. This would have been a mistake of very, very large proportions. Yeah, and I think this bishop endgame is reasonably easily winning. Well, CD5 is completely hopeless. His chance was to play ED5, and actually maybe I shouldn't have allowed that. Yeah, this is, I think, this has to be completely lost. Is it though? Why did I think that? Okay, so... This is just weird. Like, I just assumed this was winning somehow. And now I cannot for the life of me understand why I assumed that. I'm getting very annoyed with myself here. I'm not sure bishop d5 is an actual threat, but I think he's doing okay not to allow it. I think from a practical viewpoint, it's fine for him not to even have to calculate it. But mainly I'm just sitting here. Hang on a second. Okay, we'll find out now, because now he has to allow it. And I'm not gonna give him back this option. I don't know if this is important to play e6 first. I think it leads to the same positions. And also, I'm not sure if this Zugzwang that my opponent drove himself to was necessary. It's an interesting endgame. But mainly, like, my original assumption that it's completely winning was just idiotic, I think. I could have taken on f5 there. Of course, I should have taken on f5 there. Yeah, and I will do it now. And of course, 3 win. But I think even 2 were at this point winning. So yeah, somewhere around here, the bishop should never really go to g8. But maybe he runs out of squares anyway. This is curious. And also, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure this sacrifice. Let's say, if I do get this position always with his move, and I get this position, I'm not sure this is winning anyway, but it might be, because I think I'm getting this situation where, like, I don't think he can stop me from taking on d5, going king e5, and playing d5, d6. And then I suspect he runs out of squares. Like, of course, he cannot allow me to take on c4 here, but if he continues staying on this diagonal, I can play e7 check, d7 check, and king f7, and the e-pawn wins. So I think once I establish this setup, I think I'm winning. Yeah, curious game, but also I have to say that probably cd5, ed5 is a lot better option for him. He was clearly afraid of me playing e6, e7, but maybe that is correct, of course, because e6, e7, and then he has to move the bishop, and I just go bishop d3, and I take on f5, and I win. No, that was a correct decision from him. And then we do end up with this endgame, which I now think may have been winning after all, but I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, this is enough time spent on a weird bishop endgame. Also, I'm now beginning to think maybe it was better for him. I thought maybe it was better for him to go b6 check, but that should lose, because king b4, king b8, I can play bishop d7. Bishop f7, king b5, and I will enter via d6 and collect everything. Anyway, let's play some more games, because we are nearing that magical 2-hour mark, and I don't think I will go much longer than 2 hours today. Isn't bishop to f3 at Zug? Yeah, that's a good point, Ikladin. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't think of that. That is a very good point. I somehow managed kind of to fluke this Zugzwang anyway, but yeah, your suggestion is very, very valid there, Ikladin. Yet another subline of the English, which I don't really know. seem to kind of multiply whilst I'm not watching. It's a weird experience. Like every time I look away, there's one more weird move order in English about which I have very little idea. I think this move order in particular has been played by Jan Nepomniachtchi against me in Natal Rapid, but he didn't let me take on before. He played bishop c5. Are there any openings you don't understand or have any instinctive feel for? Plenty, I think. But there are some openings which I never really even tried understanding. The example that comes to mind, like foremost for me, is the King's Indian. There was a period in the late 90s where I was actually playing the King's Indian with black quite seriously. And yeah, rook e5 is something I completely failed to consider here. Probably the best move in the position. And I didn't even have, entirely abysmal results in it, I have to say. I wasn't getting crushed in every single game, but I never had a feeling I was in any kind of a control as black in the King's Indian. It may have had something to do with the fact that I was playing sidelines. I never really played the absolute frontline King's Indians the way, let's say, Hikaru does. I played weird sidelines with knight bd7 and so on, and you don't really equalize there. We put in a lot of work with my coach at the time, Andrei Lukin, who I mentioned yesterday, and people felt, perhaps justifiably, that I wasted five minutes of their life telling a very long-winded story with no punchline. But he helped me a great deal, and the story, it brings joy to my heart, even if nobody else's. So we put in tons of work trying to become comfortable with those King's Indian structures. And I've won some reasonably nice games against lower rated people, which I think was the intention behind me starting to play the opening, because I felt that in the Grunfeld there's just too many theoretical draws more or less readily available to my opposition. But even when I won games, I never really felt like I was in any kind of a control, so I just gave up at some point because, yeah, I didn't feel at home there. That's a nice one, Adimir. I've seen it before, so I should know what the answer is, but I can't remember, and adding probabilistic equations to the list of things I'm trying to do here whilst playing live Blitz is probably not a great idea. In this particular moment, he could have played c5 followed by d5, which I suspect was a lot stronger. I'm trying to prompt a6 so that I no longer have, at any point in this game, worry about the b6 break. And I'm using this moment because my opponent removed the rook from the d-file, so the d5, d4 break is not something he can play anymore. This will be another installment of those, let's break down this fortress where our structure is a lot better and our bishop is a lot better. But here there are far fewer. I don't really like this trade. I don't think my opponent needed to get those rooks off. Yeah, keeping the divan square under control is a clever ploy by my opponent here, but I don't think it's necessarily that great. And also it gives me an opportunity to lock this bishop down, which I think whoa, what am I doing? Oh my god. Okay. I've completely forgotten about bishop b4. I thought if I play f4, it forces him to play f5 here, which is very, very far from the truth. He does this anyway, but I don't think he should have. Even after king d4, he could have played bishop e4, but there at least I had f3. Now the bishop needs to be rerouted to a better square, which stops rook e4 check, which is the main source of potential counterplay here for my opponent. I should play f4, I think, as early as possible. Already on the previous move, I don't like bishop d3. I think he should have gone f4 here. It's very important because now we have this on lockdown, and I just got a draw offer, which I think it displays a certain misunderstanding of what this position is. This really isn't a draw. Do I like the Caracan? With which color? Rigziga. Very much depends on which color. I can still do this here because rook bishop a4 I can take on a5, a6 and open up more files. Anyway, it seems like I haven't really made much progress, but I've created open files for my rook, and now his position will just crumble because I go rook a8, and the rook penetrates into the enemy camp and starts collecting stuff. Yeah. Sort of instructive, but in particular I thought the draw offer was a little bit optimistic. But once again, if you're faced with a position like this as a black player, I think bishop d3 was a huge inaccuracy by me here. And if you see this and you don't play f4, you've really only got yourself to blame. You badly need some space to breathe and to get some pieces off. And honestly, I think after f4, most of my advantage, if not all of my advantage, is just gone, because regardless of how I win this piece, the king gets to f5. Let's say I take on f4, he takes on d3, he goes king f5. He might even be better here for all I know. Not playing f2, f4 in this position immediately was just a huge mistake. What was worrying me is that he can play h6 and rook h7. And this is sort of the reason why I went bishop d3, so that I have rook c1, h1 for those lines. But allowing f4 is a much, much bigger problem for me here. Do you think you could have been even higher rated if you had more boring openings and played less interesting but more correct chess? When I was younger, maybe, although even that is not, to be honest, entirely clear. But right now, I would say quite certainly no, because I play my best chess these days when I am excited about the position in front of me. And when I feel I've seen this before a ton of times, or when I feel that I may not have seen this before a ton of times, but this is a very dry, very sort of heavily theoretical position where I'm unlikely to invent anything new, I get very easily bored. So today's Peter will definitely answer no to that question. Right now I'm forcing myself basically whenever I have enough energy for it. Sometimes you just feel completely empty and you cannot. But whenever I feel I have enough energy for it, I try to play as sharply and as randomly, in a good sense, as possible. And for instance, this is why the game against Magnus in Vike, which I've seen a mention of it in chat, this is why it was such an interesting game. It was because basically both of us were completely out of book by move 3. And then things started happening because I think both of us, I mean, there is perhaps a difference in skill, but both of us very much like the game and like playing the game without the hindrance of, you know, having to remember long lines. So we were both very, very happy with the fact that we could start creating this early. Okay, this one isn't really starting, so sorry to Latvian Gambit, who obviously has waited for a long time there and perhaps left the keyboard for 3 minutes and is now not going to get a game, but we can't really wait. And people are asking for a game against Passion, so I will try to locate him in the list. Do I like IQP positions? I started playing some when I started including some Slavs in my black repertoire. But in general, I have very, very little experience in them. So, okay, these people annoy me. People playing the London against me are beginning to drive me a little bit. Oh, come on. Where's your sense of adventure? I mean, it's the correct move, obviously, in this position. I mean, I don't know why I'm crying about it, but yeah, this is not great for me. On a large number of levels, this is not great for me. I mean, I'm worse, and also I'm not gonna really be enjoying this very much. Okay, let's do this. The issues remain, though. I'm slightly worse after e4, although that probably isn't the end of the world. Also after knight e5, I suspect I'm in some kind of trouble. I don't know how much, but it's a, you know, very obvious, very solid move here. There is really no story with Peter and London's magician. I'm in the same boat as everybody else on the subject, which is we would very much like to pretend the opening doesn't exist, but it does exist and it gets played more and more at various levels, including very high level, obviously. And some people at some point realized that, you know, not much can be done about it and actually started studying it. Whereas I am still, in every single London game I face, I am basically winging it. And here I played some moves way too fast and I'm now much worse. In particular, knight g3, knight e4, I think, was a very large miscalculation. And I'm going to be enjoying this game very, very little for a while. Because I wasn't in time to play f6, basically. You need to be able to play f6 early. And I wasn't in time. And I mean, there is some temptation to try and make f6 work in this position, but I just don't believe it does. And yeah, I'm not, you know, I don't think I should be making moves which I honestly believe are poor against this quality of a position. But if I don't play f6, I am getting this kind of a treatment. Knight h5 was just much stronger here. What am I doing? Yeah, absolutely needed to go knight h5 there and then f6 and hope I don't lose there. Because now when I play f6, he can play queen h4. And yeah, my position is just really, really poor here. I'm not dead yet, but this is very, very far from what I wanted to get. I think I might have enough time to include queen e7 here. Not 100% sure, but I think I might. But yeah, the issues just don't go away. I mean, e4 is, as my opponent has done by now, is a very worrying development. to which I'm not even sure what my reply is supposed to be. I'm basically worse everywhere. My light pieces are more passive, my structure is not great, and I'm also constantly under the threat of getting mated on the king side. So okay, so at least I managed to ask a question here. But I think if he goes queen h4, my question kind of disappears. But I will be able to play f5. And this is stability of sorts. It's not great, but I think it's an improvement over what I had earlier. And now I have a quote-unquote source of counterplay with a5, b4, trying to open up something on the queen side. At the same time, something like g4 might still mate me at any moment. So position still is quite bad, but might be a little bit better than it used to be, would be my assessment. I'm basically just trying to survive here, and you know, the one saving grace I have is that this bishop on c2 is currently you know, somewhat controlled by the pawn on f5, and I'm trying to simplify and survive, but position remains very, very horrible. Not really the kind of a position I wanted to get at all. Don't really understand this move though. I think it's a waste of a tempo. Maybe he felt that, like, I would have just taken on d7 and played rook e5. Not that there is something necessarily wrong with this. I don't know why I'm criticizing it. Seems to have perfectly justifiable tactical reasons for it. I thought I can take, yeah, that is unfortunate, because I thought I can take d5, rook g6, but he takes d6 and he wins. That is very, very unfortunate. Whoa, that was an attempt to blunder mate in one there from me. I will refuse to do that for the time being. I will have to go, no, rook g6 just loses. What did I do? And rook e6 also loses. Okay, this this game might be somewhat over. If he takes on f5, I have knight f8 though. Yeah, this is, I thought this was just completely lost, but in fact, maybe it isn't. And it's very easy. I'll stop talking for a bit. I would like not to lose this game if possible. I have a horrible score against Max. It would be quite nice for me not to lose this game. I'm not playing it at all well though. But maybe we get away with it. Yeah, this knight f8 trick was quite nice. I mean, somewhere around here I must be close to completely lost. And my solution would have been just to take and go rook e5, later on cemented with f3, f4, just king f2, rook fe1. And I mean, most endgames probably are even winning for white, but I'm not sure I survived to leave to an endgame. But then I spotted this, just in time, I spotted this knight f8 trick. And for me, this is a huge improvement, because obviously if he takes, he cannot support the bishop on f4, because now suddenly all of my pieces are gorgeous, and f3 pawn is falling next move. And after bishop e4, I mean, the moves I made are horrible, but compared to the position I had earlier, this is a tremendous improvement. Yes, I'm down a pawn, but I have established a very, very sensible blockade on the light squares. My king is safer than his king. And this construction with the bishop on f4 and pawns on f3 and d5 is not very stable. But I think somewhere around here I should do more not to allow rook d6. And in fact, maybe I can already win this pawn back here. I don't know why I didn't do that. I was kind of worried about rook d8 check, but I can just play rook e8. I'm perfectly fine here. It's probably just completely equal. Anyway, I guess one more and we'll stop. I'm not sure if someone in chat knows when Jan is scheduled to start his. I mean, if I'm infringing on Jan's time, I should probably stop. But if I'm not, I would like to play one more, because this wasn't horrible, and I feel like maybe in the end I'm winning. Oh yeah, I am winning. Yeah. Because at d6, I missed I have queen e1 check. Then queen d2, king g3, and I guess queen takes d6. Yeah, but also I had like 16 seconds, and who knows if I was able to, if I would have been able to make all these moves in time. Okay, if he starts at 6, then let's play one more, and we'll call it a wrap after that. And I'll try to play it better, and I'm very thankful for this not being the London. People targeting my lack of knowledge in the London was becoming tiresome. I don't think you're supposed to do that in this position, but I could. But also I'm not supposed to take on e5, I now realize. Yeah, we're both not doing this right. I'm supposed to go knight d7, e6, knight f6 there. Pretty sure. Okay. Let's get mated in 20 moves. Well, preferably not, obviously, but in this position, I think it's very much possible to get mated in 20 moves the way I'm playing. I'm really, really playing with fire here. On the other hand, you know, this central setup is a lot sturdier than it looks. So now this is actually a draw if I want it, I guess. Well, I need to take, but after bishop takes e6, I've ignored the fact that he has queen g6 check, but I think it's just a draw. On the other hand, I might not have anything better. I might have to go for it. Does rook d6 win there? Like, he goes queen g6, I go queen e7, and he has a repetition with queen g5, queen g6. And he also has a move like rook d6, which threatens mate in 1. Now, rook d6, I can go knight d5. But also, I don't really feel like I have a choice. This is the regrettable bit. If he goes rook d6 here, I might be completely busted. Because if I take on e5, I don't lose on the spot, but the resulting position feels like it should be lost for me. Yeah, I think rook d6 might win here. It's regrettable. And there we go with the drinking game. I should have stopped on the previous game. Now I'll have to play one more if I lose this one. I'm pretty sure f4, e5 is not the way to play the Sozin in this line, and I just replied way too fast without kind of, my brain and my hand did not really connect there. What? This I did not expect. I don't think it's that great either. I mean, if I take with the bishop, I'm pretty sure this is a draw for him. He could have had the draw with queen g5 check, but now I would like to play this for a win, if at all possible. But queen d7 rook d1 is surprisingly annoying. No, this is a mistake. No, my opponent is not really doing it right. I really don't know why he didn't. If he wanted a draw, which this seems to be, like, this seems to be the intention here. But if he wanted a draw, he had a very comfortable draw with queen g5 check in the previous position. No, I don't think it's a mouse slip. Was it? Yeah, I'll ask. Whoops, sorry. A Svidler stream is not a proper Svidler stream without at least one. What? Why is this on the screen now? Why is this? Are you guys also seeing this weird black box in the middle? It really isn't supposed to be there. I don't know where it came from. I don't know how to get rid of it. Hang on a second. I have no idea where this is from. Like, I just typed something in chat, and now this appeared. I think this is a sign. We can't really defeat the black box. And Russian hacker confirmed. Yeah, this is an interesting ending to the stream. I have never seen this before. This is something I have absolutely zero experience with. A black box appearing in the middle of a stream. What am I doing? I'm also trying, like, the black box is distracting to such a degree that I'm actually trying to not win this game now. If he takes on h6, I'm not even sure I'm better anymore. Oh. Yeah. Me and tech issues. I think I'm actively trying to lose now. And the thing is, I mean, I wouldn't mind even that much, but you guys can't see the board. This is more than a little annoying. Because, I mean, none of these things exist on my screen. On my screen, I'm still playing a reasonably clean game, and yeah, this is way too confusing. And the game is actually becoming kind of interesting. So it's a pity I can't really tell you much about this, because opponent should offer a draw. I'm not going to take the draw here. I think I'm actually still winning. I think I managed to not screw it up in the end, but yeah, bizarre happenings. Okay, we won that one, and we'll go to full screen, and at least there's no black box here. I honestly have no idea what happened there. Alt F4 won't. I don't. And I'm switching to Russian now. Oh my god. Yeah, Alt F4 will not work, because it's only there on XSplit. It's not on my screen. And I tried finding exactly where in XSplit it appeared, but whilst also playing a chess game and almost getting mated, this is difficult. I'm not such a huge XSplit expert. Okay, hang on a second. I mean, the black box is definitely still there. And yeah, we could. I mean, the rest of the stream could be like Guardsman Bob, you know, code fights. Peter Svidler plays chess and also tries coding, but I'm not as opposed to Guardsman Bob, I'm not really a coder. So I think we'll just finish on this rather bizarre note. I actually managed to break something in the completely unbreakable XSplit setup by seemingly typing stuff in the chat box whilst playing the game. So if my last opponent is in chat, I don't really see him. But if you're watching this now, some feedback on whether Rook takes d7 was a mouse sleep would be good. So I'll wait for an answer for another half a minute, and I'll try to see if I miss something interesting in chat. But yeah, weirdness. Now I know where all those Peter good moves come from. I was actually playing really poorly running up to the moment where the black box appeared, so that theory doesn't really hold water. Peter confused audience happy. Thank you, Peter. Yeah. I have no idea what happened there, as he's downloading Jan's banking details. People are... I think I should end the stream here, because people are getting very close to the truth. Anyway, thanks for watching. It was kind of enjoyable up to and maybe even including the moment where the stream kind of half crashed due to something something seemingly innocent I did. And there probably will be more. I would like to have some rest days on my visit to Hamburg, but somehow the powers that be don't seem to be much in favor of that idea. So I have a feeling I will play more Banter Blitzes on rest days. I will also highly likely that I will play a co-op with Shady on the next rest days. For those of you who are interested in that, I will do the second run of the day with Shady Bunny on Saturday. So if you want to join in and watch that, it should be a fun run. At least I hope so. And yeah, thanks for watching. Wait for Jan, who probably won't have black box issues. And please tune in tomorrow at 3 p.m. For the continued coverage of the Berlin candidates. Also, on your screen you can see the promo code for going premium, 50% off with the voucher code Paul Borta. So yeah, if you want to do that, we really won't mind. Anyway, thanks for giving me company, and hopefully see you tomorrow. Bye.